why are all the music shops closing down, or stores? Well, it's quite an easy question to answer, but then it takes a bit of time to explain how that's happened. Well, the easy question is it's all to do with money. I mean, it goes without saying that, does it? It's got to be to do with money. If they can't afford to keep them running, they shut them down. And we've, in where I live, in the UK, we've just lost one of the biggest music stores around, and that's PMT. Now, Performance Music Technology, I think that was their original name. And then did they change? I think they changed their name to Play Music Together or something like that. I personally preferred Performance Music Technology. It seemed a little bit more go-getting and that sort of stuff. Anyway, so the reason why I'm making this video is because I bought nearly everything in this room from PMT. And there's a good reason for that, and that's just the way that many older musicians used to buy their equipment. So I'm going to wander back a little bit. I'm not going to go back to caveman times, as someone suggested on my last video. I'm not going to go back that far. I'm just going to go, well, I don't know, actually. For some of you young people, it might feel like I'm going back to caveman times if I go back to the 1980s. So as a young musician, impressionable, we used to, or I used to, should I say, wander around the music shops of the day, and we'd drool over the latest keyboard, the latest guitar, the latest drum kit, and the shopkeepers would expect that. And if you were pleasant and nice and didn't, look like a rowdy person, or someone that was going to damage the equipment, as it were, they might even let you have a go on it. And so you'd sit down and play the latest Yamaha drum kit, or as electronic drums were coming out, a lot of people would really want to have a sit down on a Roland or a electronic drum kit and see, what's the difference between a real drum kit and an electronic drum kit? And, that's what the difference is. I can feel it, it doesn't bounce as well as or it does, when the mesh ones came out, they were a bit better. So you could go, you could touch, you could feel. Now, there were things that were out of bounds, obviously, the really expensive guitars. If they saw a little snotty-nosed kid coming into a shop and there was a very expensive guitar hanging up, a guitar hanging up, it's unlikely you'd get your paws on that one. But you'd definitely be able to get your paws on the second-hand guitars because they're trying to sell those. So obviously they were my marketplace thing, second-hand guitars. Couldn't afford new guitars. Actually, I couldn't afford most of the stuff in the store, to be fair. But it was very nice to go window shopping, and I used to love looking around and dreaming about having an actual Gibson guitar or an actual Fender guitar even, that would have been brilliant. But no, I had to, like everybody else, make do with what you could get your hands on at the time, which I think was an Aria. I think I had an Aria acoustic guitar, and that's what I wrote most of my songs on, actually. It's an old Aria acoustic guitar, which is still lurking around somewhere. I think I gave it to somebody a few months back, and as a practice starting guitar. But so we would do that. We would go around the shops. We'd get known by all the people in the stores, in the shops, and they would realise you're a musician, not just someone going in there to sort of destroy all their equipment. And they would help you, they would talk to you, they would give you advice, and they'd say what's the best thing for you to do, how well they could see. Probably you couldn't afford to do X, Y, Z. And then they would advise you accordingly, as I said. And at the end of the day, they pretty much knew that you were likely to buy from that store, okay? So I would, as a young kid, I'd save my pennies, which took quite a bit of time, and I'd wander in, and, loyalty would kick in then, because I knew the guys behind the counter. I knew that they knew that I wanted to buy something. I'd go in there, and actually one of the first purchases that I made was 2 Rototoms. Don't know if you remember those Rototom things. And one was they were massive things, really big Rototoms, and you could spin them to tune them, these ones. So you could spin them and the tone would go up, but it'd be actually good for a solo because you could just unwind them and they'd sound like those big timpanis, you could hit them, whatever. So I was all excited. I was at work in the jewellery quarter in Birmingham, and I'd got my little MG midget. I think I'd driven my MG midget to work, and in the lunch break I decided to walk from the jewellery quarter right up to Yardley's. I don't know if anybody remembers Yardley's. It was the music shop on Colmore Row in Birmingham, and pick up these 2 second-hand Rototoms with a stand. Now, sense was probably missing on that day, because these flipping things were absolutely, well, they weighed a ton. So I'd got to get up there in my lunch break, pick up these 2 massive Rototoms and walk them back to the jewellery quarter. Yeah, it seemed like a good idea at the time. So anyway, it wasn't a great idea. But still, I managed it just about. Couldn't hop on a bus at the time. Because of, logistical places as to where it really wasn't worth it. It seemed like not that far, but anyway, so I went and bought that, got it back, managed to get it home. That's not really the story, is it? But so loyalty was there. Now, let's move on a few years, and this thing called the internet pops up. Now, that meant that people could do a little bit more of their own research. So they'd know a little bit about the item before they went into the shop. But what they would do, and this isn't all people, this is quite a lot of people, would go into the store, they'd grab a guitar that they like the look of and that they'd seen online, play it, think, yeah, that's not bad, I like that guitar. And they might then, after spending half an hour, 3/4 of an hour talking to the guy in the shop, wander off and go and buy it online. Now, it wasn't quite so, it didn't happen quite so often with, just making sure I'm still recording. It didn't happen quite so often with guitars, because guitars are a touchy-feely thing. They really are. You have to get a guitar and play it, really, to buy a guitar. You want to make sure the intonation's right. You want to make sure that the strings are, the action's quite nice on it. Or, well, basically you want it to fit you. And some guitars, you'll pick them up and they fit you, They feel like they've been designed for you, and that's a guitar. So a guitar is a very much so touchy-feely thing, and I just still think that you're going to have to go to a shop to buy a guitar. But that's my feelings about it. However, buying things from the internet when you've spent an hour talking to a guy in a shop, there's no profit for them. No profit at all at the shops. So they just end up being a, source of information, or the Google of the physical form. So you can go and ask all these questions and then go and buy it from somewhere else. Now, you always used to be able to do that. You always used to be able to, quiz somebody in your hometown and then maybe drive down to London and get a slightly better deal, or the other way around. Drive up to a smaller shop and maybe they'd got one that was a bit, older, and you could, or say older. What I mean by that is older stock, new old. Had been played a little bit in the shop, so it was knocked down, so you'd get it for a good price. Now that is still a bit. It's not really, using the term naughty is not really, doesn't really work for it. But imagine years and years and years of this happening now with the internet being there. So these stores just end up being a form of information and a physical Google place for people to go in, look at equipment, work out whether it's for them, and then go back home and buy it online, thus spending loads of the time and money of the store. It costs them money to keep people there, to be a physical Google for you. So if you're going to go in and do that, well, there is one of the reasons why the stores are disappearing, because they have overheads. Now, there's a lot of overheads in a store. There's the heating, the electric, obviously the lighting. There's the store itself. A lot of these stores aren't actually owned, they're rented, so there's the rent. There's the training, there's the staff, and add all that together, and you might think that, well, can they be competitive with the online market? Okay, online market, what have they got? They've got a warehouse, or have they? A lot of them haven't. They literally they have a deal with the manufacturer, and they, buy in and sell out straight away. So they don't really need to store huge amounts of gear. So they'll have a very good deal with the manufacturer. So let's just use a throwaway name, like, so let's say, for instance, a Yamaha, for instance. Okay, so a smaller store, a smaller shop, they'll have buying power of a certain amount. Now, their buying power is going to be, they're going to shift X amount of units. Let's say it's, for strange it is, let's just say 10 Yamaha in instruments a week. Like, I'm sure they get through many more than that. So let's just assume they have 10. So they have a 10 off buying policy with the manufacturer. So they can actually, sort of work the price out, because they're going to be buying 10. So they've got like a loyalty scheme, if you think of it like that. So, because they buy from Yamaha, they get a slightly small, a small discount. And then an online store that might sell let's say, for instance, 100 items of Yamaha gear a week, they may well get a slightly better deal. Now, that's strange, because they're getting a better deal. They can sell the item if they want to. They've got to generally go with the RRP, which is the retail recommended price. I think that's what that means. So they've generally got to try and go with the RRP, because if they don't do that, Yamaha used to get upset with people for undercutting the stores. However, I don't really know whether price wars seem to be more apparent now. If one company can do it for 20 pence cheaper, people will, do that. Anyway, that's by the by. The point I'm trying to make with this is that the smaller stores haven't got the buying power, but they've got all the overheads. So they've got many, many, many more costs than the online retailers, and they can't get the best prices either. However, what should have been happening, which I don't think was happening correctly, but it was in the olden days. Let's say Yamaha said, well, hang on, how's anybody going to actually purchase any of our equipment if it's not, available for someone to look at, to play with, and to, establish that they want to buy it? Because this is YouTube reviews, and that used to have magazine reviews, obviously. So Yamaha would do all their marketing, all their magazine reviews, and there might be even videos released that might be at the store, played on in the store, showing the latest Yamaha this, Yamaha that. But they wouldn't really be able to get people's attraction until they'd done one of two things. One, got it into the stores so people could look at it, touchy-feely it. Two, get celebrity endorsement, So Yamaha might say to I don't know, a guitarist or a drummer of the time, here you go, have a Yamaha kit. There you go, you have that one, and you play that, and then we can sell it in the stores. And that still happens. That's not a no-brainer, that is. You know, celebrity endorsement is a massive way of selling stuff. I mean, look at the tennis stars of today, you know, having, all wearing Nike and things like that. I don't even need to explain that because that's as obvious as it could be. So what they used to do is they used to sell, they used to not really sell, they used to give demo equipment out. Now, I'm quite sure that used to happen a lot, where they would send a kit into a store, expect it to get used a little bit, and then what would happen is the shop would then sell it as slightly used, or they'd try and get away with selling it as brand new if they could, and rotate this stuff, much faster. And that worked. It sort of worked. They got a really good sort of rapport with the manufacturers, with the Yamahas, and they fed off each other, as it were. And that worked really well. You'd go into a store, you'd play it. You'd play the instrument, but it suddenly then becomes secondhand, and that is one of the issues with allowing people to play an instrument. You can't. Yes, you do go and get a car and drive it around the streets and stuff like that, and that turns into a demo, and they can't get the full price for that. So someone has to lose somewhere, because a lot of the time you won't want to buy that actual demo car. What you want to do is you'll order a brand new one, and that can happen with drums and instruments and things like that as well. You'll go, yeah, I like that because you've had a good go and play on it, but I don't want that one because everyone's had a go on that one, so that's got a bit sort of wrecked, that one has. So I don't want that one. I'll have a brand new one, please. Can you order me a brand new one in? And they would, and that would happen, and away you go. So that's the way that the music sort of stores used to work. And then, as I said before, the internet comes in, and they sort of bury their heads in the sand and think, well, this internet thing, we'll be all right. We've got the stores. And then more time goes on, they end up having to compete with these online stores, which is not possible. And then us guys basically hammer the nails in the coffin even further by visiting the stores, playing the instruments, messing with them, and then going home and ordering them online. And that is the biggest failure of the store. They didn't fail, we failed. The musicians failed. They created the issues by being disloyal, I suppose. That's the way to think of it. So you're being disloyal to the music shop that you've gone to for years and years and years, because you can save £100 or £20, whatever it is, on a new keyboard or a new speaker system or whatever it is. Yet you've got all the information about it from the store itself. So we roll on a little bit further, and then reviews start coming up. And you've noticed now there's so many reviews of equipment on YouTube. And we have our trusted sources, don't we? We have people that we actually trust to give us the right information that are on YouTube. So you will be very happy to take on board their opinions, and you'll be very happy to go online, go to a company like, say, for instance, another place I buy stuff for, which is Gear for Music, and buy a microphone from there, have it delivered to your house. There is absolutely no way that a company like PMT can compete with those prices, yet they had to. So they had to work on volume, sales, with very small profit lines, whatever they call them, profit levels, there you go. So that was the only way they could survive, was by having very low margins, because then another thing happened, and that is that the big companies, your Fenders, your Gibsons, I don't know whether Gibson do it, but a lot of main manufacturers started selling themselves online, thus sort of cutting out the stores. And they may be selling stuff that you don't necessarily need to test, because you can watch a review video. Even the companies themselves, like sort of Taylor and Martin and all guitar manufacturers, would be showing their equipment online, and still do show their equipment online. They show celebrities or celebrity YouTubers using this equipment online. You can listen to it in stereo, high quality, and you can go, yeah, I love the sound of that. Or I love the sound of that keyboard. More likely, a lot more technical equipment is sold online than, as I said before, the guitar itself. People still prefer to go and pick a guitar up, or a drum even, or an actual musical instrument. They still prefer to touchy-feely it before you sort of go and buy it. It's a preference, not a requirement now, though. So we go and, they do this, they sell online, they undercut the online stores, not necessarily by much, and a lot of the time it can be just on the delivery, where some will offer free delivery and some won't offer free delivery, or they'll charge you a little bit for delivery, and those stores will lose out if they don't offer free delivery. So they're now fighting with the online stores, who are actually going to lose out eventually as well. Is there any way that we can fix this? Not really. It's a little bit like the music industry in general, that we've allowed things to happen in a way, and literally the things are just coming true. You could foresee that music stores were going to disappear over time, because they just couldn't afford to keep up with online. You could see people, even when I was in the stores looking at things, you could see people wandering in, having a look, and just literally asking, can they try this guitar out? And the person behind the counter was thinking, oh God, we're going to end up with a really worn out guitar that we won't be able to sell. And then they're going to go somewhere else and go and buy it online. So that is my opinion of why. If it's probably a little bit difficult to sort of work out what I'm trying to say, maybe, but I think I'm sort of trying to blame us as musicians for starting the failure, and then the stores used to cause trouble by ripping everybody off because they could, and then they had to compete with online, and now the manufacturers are competing with the online stores to sell direct. So we are going to end up with nowhere to try guitars out. So we're going to have to rely on the second-hand market, where people have bought a guitar, they have it, they put it on YouTube or Reverb or something like that, and then we're going to go and see it, we're going to play it, we're going to go, yeah, that's nice, I like that. Which actually, that's probably good from a planet sort of thing, because we're reusing and we're keeping older gear instead of buying newer gear. And we are going to continue to buy technical hardware, as in like, sound devices, microphones, microphone stands, headphones, all the other peripheral bits and pieces, strings even. You don't really need to test a string, do you? From reviews on YouTube, and then links to where to buy them from, which would be Gear for Music or one of the other massive stores, online stores. Now, as far as I know, I heard, Gear for Music bought or has bought all the stock from PMT. So keep an eye out for some reasonable deals maybe on guitars, because the PMT had a lot of guitar stock. So keep your eyes on it and see how it goes. But my opinion is that is the end of the music store as we know. The thing that will probably stick around is it might, if we can start being a little bit more loyal to the smaller independent music stores, if we can start supporting them, if we can start going in and checking guitars out and not then going and buying them online. If you can buy them through the store, you should be paying a few more pounds for the store and the people in the store's advice. If you don't need advice, go to YouTube, work out what you want, and then buy it online. But don't waste the time of the small independent music shops unless you're prepared to purchase from them, because I think that's incredibly bad form. Okay, anyway, thanks for listening to this video, and I'll catch you on my next one. Thank you very much.